Hello everyone, this is BK Entertainment and we're back again, and here now we have another video for you, and this will be a review of the premiere episode of House of the Dragon. Now there'll likely be spoilers here, so just beware when going into this overall video. Now many of you will know what House of the Dragon is, but just in case there's anybody watching who doesn't know, this is the prequel to the story of Game of Thrones, the massively successful fantasy series based on the acclaimed set of fantasy novels A Song of Ice and Fire, which was written by George R.R. Martin. Now those books and series told the wide-spanning epic story of the never-ending battles of the Seven Kingdoms within the land of Westeros. Now House of the Dragon is set around 200 years or so before the events of Game of Thrones, where the focus is primarily set on House Targaryen, which all of the fans will know is the ancestry of Daenerys Targaryen, one of the most famous characters within Game of Thrones. Now the House of Targaryen were also famous for ruling the Seven Kingdoms with the aid of several dragons at their disposal. And this series will focus on a civil war during the Targaryen rule, where we see the rule under King Viserys Targaryen, who aspires to have a boy to be the next heir to the throne, but whilst he waits for that to happen, the only two people who have claim to the Iron Throne is his brother Daemon Targaryen and also his daughter Rahenyra. And over the course of the story we will see the ongoing battle and struggle between these two individuals to claim the Iron Throne for their own rule. Now House of the Dragon debuted on HBO Max on August 22nd, 2022, and it will overall consist of 10 episodes. So after a huge investment of HBO, can this series pick up the baton after Game of Thrones and reignite the major interest in the fantasy story after many fans were left disappointed by the final 8th season of Game of Thrones? Now I'd say overall this was a very good start to the show. It has all of the same scale and production values and tones that what we saw from Game of Thrones. It's every bit as close to the spirit of that original series, and of course we have all of the typical scenes of the sex and violence that we associated so much with Game of Thrones. And many fans will be pleased to see all of the familiar locations of Westeros, including King's Landing and the Red Keep, and especially in that early sequence where we see Rahenyra flying with the dragon all around the city in a very visually impressive sequence. Now whilst there was nothing here quite as standout as the opening and closing scenes of the first episode of Game of Thrones, there were still plenty of interesting elements here to keep me interested to see what happens throughout the entire season. And this episode moved at a nice steady pace, allowing you time to understand who the main characters will be, and you really didn't need to have watched Game of Thrones or have read the books to get really immersed into the story, and I think this is a very smart decision from the showrunners. Whilst of course they want to use the legacy of Game of Thrones to help promote this story, if this prequel is to stand on its own, it has to really be free of any ties of the future storylines and really become its own identity in terms of a series. Now the three main characters throughout the story are played very well by the cast of actors. Paddy Constantine is very good as King Viserys, who we see as very much of a fair-minded ruler, and we end up emphasising with him especially in a quite distressing scene where he has to make the difficult choice of forcing his wife's childbirth, which results in her losing her life and later on him also losing a child. He also has to deal with this grief alongside other council members who constantly bicker and squabble over who has the right to succession to the throne. Millie Alcock is fine as also as Rahenyra. Now of course her look will evoke memories of Daenerys, and it will be interesting to see if we get multiple seasons of the show how this character will develop and evolve throughout the story, and will she have a similar impact as what Daenerys did. This comes especially important where we see her announced as the successor to the Iron Throne in the closing scenes, King Viserys making this decision due to the more violent and reckless nature of Daemon. And when we talk of Daemon, who is played very well by Matt Smith, we could be looking at the standout character of the series. Matt Smith plays it with very much bravado and menace, and it'll be fascinating to see how this character rebels and looks to bolster his own claim to the throne. He's easily the most interesting character of the episode so far, and he will go on to likely be the main antagonist of the entire series. Now of course the biggest challenge of this series will be trying to keep the story compelling, especially for fans who already know the destined fate of the Targaryens. Now that won't be an issue as much for non-fans of the show, but overall I think this is a series that you can just jump into without any previous knowledge. And I just hope it continues to keep pushing the story forward. I think it was a very big decision to end the episode with Rahenyra already being named as the successor to the main throne. I think this is a development that Game of Thrones probably wouldn't have actually revealed until the end of a certain season. So hopefully this series will be far more pacier in propelling the main story developments, and it won't quite have the same slow burn as what we saw certainly in the opening seasons of Game of Thrones. But overall, so far so good and a very solid start to the series. It will be interesting to see how things develop throughout the rest of the season. So whilst I wasn't initially hoped for this prequel story, having watched the first episode, I am now far more invested, and hopefully it will go on to be another compelling fantasy series. So those are my overall thoughts and feelings and review of House of the Dragon, the prequel series to Game of Thrones. Let me know what you think in the comments below. How do you think this compares to the opening episode of Game of Thrones? Do you think it was superior or inferior? Do you think this can go on to have the same cultural impact as what Game of Thrones did? Or do you think this will be yet another disappointing prequel or continuation of an iconic series? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And as usual with all of my reviews of television series, I will pick out any standout episodes and also review the season finale and also do an overall review of the entire season itself. So look out for all of that great content within the channel within the future. And if you have any other television series or movies or other topics that you'd like to see me cover within the channel, then drop me a suggestion within the comments and I will see if I can provide further commentary for you within the future. Please also hit and like the subscription and notification buttons so I can provide you with more high quality content like this in the future. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves, stay at safe distances, and I will see you very, very soon.